this is a dumb question. What season is it?
It is autumn, so it's the opposite of yours. I reckon you're going in spring, right?
We're sort of spring starting to mosey towards summer.
Yeah, so we're moseying towards winter now. I can actually see a rainbow over the sea because it's been raining, so I literally can see
Oh,
it. And the yeah,
nice.
wait, can you see it? Can you see it? Has
Oh,
it
whoa,
adjusted? Wait,
you
wait, if I
are
go to through
very
that one.
much just on the sea there, aren't you?
Can you see the rainbow?
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's a
Cool,
treat
eh?
for the audio
So
listeners here. Yeah, treat.
yeah, you'll see I've got very clean teeth and a rainbow. Yeah. So the weather's turning. It's just getting cold. It's getting a little bit like, like slippers, heaters, inside weather, which is like my favorite because it's productive. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's good.
And what's Cape Town like?
Cape Town in general or at the
Yeah,
weather?
imagine I've never been there. Hard as that is.
It is. It's amazing. It's like I'm born and bred Cape Townian, so I don't really know much else. But like the older I'm getting, the more I'm kind of interested in being engaged in my city. And I think like and in nature. Cape Town's incredible. Like it's literally I'm currently wedged between like the sea and the mountain. And we've been going on hikes literally just behind my house. I've started surfing. So it's really beautiful, really it's super. I mean, South Africa is incredibly diverse. So you just have this like just stimulation of like culture and music and it's just yeah, I love it's home and I love it and I'm really enjoying utilizing the city for what it has to offer.
Yeah, are the summers like really, really hot?
Yeah, yeah, really hot and windy in Cape Town, super windy. If you go further north, like if you're in Joburg, the summers are completely different. It's like humid and you get those like tropical rains. But Cape Town, very windy, very hot, very beautiful. So
Hmm.
yeah.
It's a little known fact that English people, when they go above a certain temperature, melt like candles. And it's true. We come
uh,
back a lot shorter and a lot more sort of messy. So
yeah,
I'm glad
you can
that's
always
not.
spot an English tourist here as well. They're always very sunburned, very.
I forget, like I've had no hair on my head since about the year 2000. I still forget. And
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
and this is a dumb confession, is I forget that my head extends higher than my eyes. So we used to have a shed, and I would walk into the door frame of the shed about 6 times a year because I sort of forget about the space above my eyes in terms of my head.
Oh, how are you? How's your driving?
It's getting
Do you
steadily
like
worse the
forget?
more I bang my head. It's not bad. I'm getting to that old man vibe where I'm determined that I'm right. I've got the right of way, even if I'm on the wrong side of the street or something. It's just a thing that, hey, but
I
do we drive on
I
the same side of the road?
yes, we do. We do.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, we do. But I'm also getting that like that indignation that like even if you forget to indicate and somebody hoots you're like, come on, where's your patience? And then if somebody forgets to indicate, you're like, come on, don't you know how to use it? That thing, that whole like
Yeah.
completely self-absorbed, the world revolves around your driving style. Um, and then my aunt said to me the other day, which I absolutely love, she says, if you're sitting in traffic, it's because you are traffic. And that's like, I
Oh,
love that. Yeah,
that's very meta,
very
isn't it?
meta.
Yeah, very
Mhm.
meta. Yeah. If someone stands on your foot, do you apologize to them? Or if someone bumps into you,
Yeah.
not you bump into
Yes,
someone
yes,
bumps into you.
yes, yes.
Yeah. I wonder whether there's a turning point on that as well. I feel like I'm stopping to do that now because I've realized it's just the way it is. Or like if you,
Do you feel like your sorries are finite and you're like, "Oh, I wasted another
yeah,
sorry."
10,000 sorries and I need to save approximately 8,000 of those just for my wife.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can also just say, "Yes, dear." That usually works.
Yes, dear. Yeah, I've
Yes,
learned that
dear.
there are times when I just have to be agreeing and not try and solve problems. I don't want to get into
No.
a whole like male feminist men are from Mars debate right now or whatever, but I know that there are times. Also, I've learned, and I've said this to other people, like in the pecking order of my house, I'm firmly at the bottom because I have three
Mhm.
strong and powerful women, even though one of them is 7 and the other
Oh,
one's 5. I just know that I'm at the bottom of the list. But I was sort of trying to say to someone that that resignation is very freeing because you're not fighting it anymore. You just go, yeah, whatever.
do you always get the smallest towel, not tile, towel?
I usually
even though
find
you're the
my
biggest.
towel has been used by someone else. Yeah. Do you know what happened the
Yeah.
other day? This sorry for anybody who's in wanting to listen about art, but the other day, Annie,
Sorry.
my 5-year-old, got into my bed and I went into her bed. But because she decided to change the bedding, I was actually having to sleep under like a cot bed, like duvet, which meant I had to
Hmm.
put like socks on. There was no way for me to be fully covered by the duvet, and I just lay there like, yeah, what?
Well,
You
these are
just
the beautiful
freeze.
sacrifices of being the dad, right? It's like that's
Yeah. It
that's
is. It is.
family.
Here's another sad thing then. This is quite sad now, right? Have you heard Annie's song by John Denver? You fill up my senses like a night forest. It's a little
Yes,
bit
yes,
kind
yes,
of,
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah.
So there's that song. There's a couple of cheesy songs that have now got meaning, but with that song, because our daughter's called Annie, we sing it to her quite
Mm.
a lot. And I remember once I was having to drive around to get her to sleep and listening to it, and there's a bit where it says, "I will drown in your laughter, I will die in your arms," and I think that's
Oh.
a really like beautiful sentiment for a parent. And by like the eighth
Mm.
time of listening to it on a loop, I'm like driving around, just like literally crying in my car. I just go,
Mm.
"That's so nice of it."
It's so true.
It's so true. And the other one that's a bit cheesy now, because I think of songs, sometimes I like to sing to the girls when I'm asleep. And for some reason, popular choices have been Sitting on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding, which is
Okay.
fine, except it's about a man who's clearly quite depressed because he's just sitting on the dock of the bay wasting
Yeah, yeah. He's not actually
time.
having a great time. Yeah.
No. And then another song that sprang to mind has been I Will Survive by Donna Summer, which both of the girls can now sing. So sometimes we walk down the street singing that, which is pretty good.
Oh,
But
that's
the other one
amazing.
that I quite like now is Just Like Me by the Carpenters. Again, super cheesy, but it's
Yeah.
like when you sing it to your kids, you're like, why do birds suddenly anyway,
That's a
sorry about
classic. That's a classic. That feels very I always thought if I ever did Idols, that's the song that I would choose.
mm,
But I would never do Idols. I am musically inept.
are you?
Completely. Yeah, completely.
And yet you used to be a VJ. What's that all about?
Well, a VJ is kind of like it was kind of my it was me trying to like live out my musical dreams without actually having to do anything musical. So the VJ is obviously just the video jockey. So I kind of sort of it as dancing with pictures. You know,
Hmm.
you play the appropriate visuals to the appropriate song, you get the beat right. I think the beat is not hard to get because you got to press like this button on the beat and that's pretty much like as much of a musical talent as I have. But I'd always dreamed of being like the lead singer in a band. I had this like amazing, I can't remember, I think it's Love Fox from CSS used to wear this like full latex sequin covered one piece and she just like throw herself around the stage and kick things. And I was like, that resonates with me. That resonates.
I mean, you're wearing it now.
So,
For the people that aren't able to see it, it's amazing that
oh
you've got that
yeah,
outfit and that it's
yeah.
you wear it well, especially with the slippers.
Thank you.
Um, and was that being a VJ? That was where the name Fiance Knowles came from. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is like kind of an inside joke. I was at the time I was dating a DJ and I'd always wanted to be a VJ and somebody joked and called me fiance Knowles and I thought if I ever do anything that ends up on a poster, remember when they were posters?
Hmm.
I would be fiance Knowles. And then I joined a hip hop collective called Uppercut and then yeah, and then I just kind of they were like, what do you want your name to be? And I said Fiance Knowles, and then I made that my Instagram account name, and it just stuck. And I think when in 2016, when my work kind of picked up momentum, and I've got quite a few more followers, I thought I could change my name back now and like take myself seriously, or I could just leave it and not take myself seriously. So I just left this, and here we are.
Yeah, pseudonyms are a useful thing, aren't they? I always think like Mr. X Stitch. I once got ChatGPT to write in the style of Mr. X Stitch, which was quite funny because I wrote something and then
Oh,
it wrote it better. Because Mr. X Stitch, according to ChatGPT, is a lot more sort of alliterative and a bit more like, "Hey,
oh,
everybody, I'm going to talk like this because I'm the kingpin of contemporary embroidery." That sort of thing, which I think is quite
amazing!
funny.
Isn't it nice that
Yeah,
that's what the internet thinks of you?
yeah. I mean, it could be a lot worse. Let's face it. That's true, really. So.
If you love it.
Let's, if nobody, I mean, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that isn't aware of your work, but if nobody has ever seen your work before, how would you describe it?
It's kind of like painting with thread. So I use stitches to in like highly saturated colors to interpret usually portraits or nature, so flowers, animals, faces, and I guess it would be called. I would say it's quite bold, colorful, and maybe a little bit like along the lines of impressionism. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I find it always find it so difficult to explain your own work because you're just really sitting thinking about like how you're going to do the next thing, let alone what you did
Yes.
in the past.
Is there a worry that the minute you go, well, this is what my work's like, then your creative energy goes, well, I don't think it's going to be like that anymore. We're going to move on.
Yeah, I think that, and I think also like deciding what you are means that you become kind of like calcified in that. So there's something quite nice about being like, well, I don't really know yet. So then you're just like always, you feel a lot more malleable and like things can just keep moving and changing. And I guess when I look back at like the work that I've created, there's consistency, but I like the idea of not having too too much about like what I am and what I do so that even though it's the same, there's still room to change.
Well, I think then it's fair for me to say what you are, isn't it? It's probably easier for an
Yes.
external viewpoint or whatever. And I always think about your work. You can tell your work at a distance, like you say, because of the saturation of color. And I think there's something about like the use of strokes as well, like the way you deliver your stitches are almost, I guess it is, it's a bit like, is it Van Gogh's kind of paintings, those small, colorful, quite not necessarily a lot of blending, but at the same time, a lot of coherence within the color, but definitely
Yes.
vibrant.
Vibrance, and I think movement. I think maybe the brush
Mm.
strokes, the stitch strokes create movement, which is not something I do on purpose. It's not something that I like intentionally set out to do. It's just kind of the way that I work. So I think maybe that's
Mm.
why it was so hard to explain it because it's not like I'm going to do this and that's what I am. I'm kind of like sitting there just trying to figure it out.
But then the first time I remember seeing your work and my jaw hitting the floor, first but not last, tennis rackets.
Yes,
Tennis rackets. Let's talk about the tennis
tennis
rackets.
racket. Yeah, the tennis racket started, I think, in 2015. I did my first one. So it was, the stroke of genius. No, it wasn't a stroke of genius. Somebody
It's a
showed me
trademark
a
phrase.
heart. It, somebody showed me like a heart woven onto a racket, kind of just almost like just the stitches wrapped around to create like a pixel heart. And I was like, this is a challenge, isn't it? And I went that day and I went to this market called Millerton Market and I bought like a 2 or 3 secondhand rackets and I kind of just started trying to figure out how to stitch something a little bit more uh, expressive and a little bit more fluid and like using my style onto a racket. So then I stitched onto a racket and I did like 2 or 3. And I think that was kind of the beginning of it actually was the beginning of my career. So I would stitch 1 or 2 and I put it online and just kind of like on Facebook when you were like, look what I did today. Look at my coffee, look at my breakfast, look at this weird little racket thing I made. And a friend was like, can I buy that? I was like, I guess, okay. And then I made another one and then I made another and I put them on a website because I was actually applying for this festival, not festival kind of program that they have in Cape Town called Design and Daba. At the time, I was working as a graphic designer and I was waitressing and I was VJing and I was kind of doing anything for money, anything to survive, pay rent. And then as a hobby, I was sewing and then I made this racket and I put it online and I made a few. And I thought, oh, I'm going to apply for design in Java as I kind of thought of myself as like a conduit of embroidery. I didn't think my work was ever going to make my career as an embroiderer happen, but I was like, oh, I'm going to collect vintage embroideries and turn them into jewelry or bags. Or I just loved embroidery and I just wanted to find like a way of like repurposing it and putting it out in the world. So I had applied for design and Java kind of under that vision. And then yeah, I made these rackets. So I put them on my website that I was building to for my design and Java application. And then the rackets just went viral. They just like overnight. I woke up with like 10,000 new followers. The next morning it was 20. The next morning it was 30. And I had all of these kind of like people contacting me, like from the Mental Floss to Vogue to just went was mad. So the rackets really just kickstarted my career.
The
Yeah.
thing is with the
And
rackets, though, is that it's not just like, there's a There's a grid formation on the racket, which naturally lends itself to like pixelation, and you can see that as quite an easy. But yours is like some kind of witchcraft because you create these forms that are so organic and round and don't seem to make sense against the grid structure that they're created on. Like how without giving the trade secrets away, how does it work? Like how do you do that?
You just you make fabric. You just
Hmm.
essentially make the fabric with wool. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
secret.
So
That oh,
right, right,
okay.
right.
It's another. There it goes. There's just that's it. Basically,
Simple. Just do that. No, but I
it's
mean,
simple.
is it like an iterative thing? Like you just build the laser. Like I was talking to Meredith Woolnough, and she does those organic pieces, machine
Mm,
embroidery, soluble fabric, and it's very much you're creating the fabric with your stitches. So your starting formation isn't going to be the end product. It's more like structural
mm,
architecture, engineering, and so I'm guessing that's
mhm.
the same approach you take.
Totally, exactly. So you're just layering. All my work is really based on layering. So it just works at layering, 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 and then so that it builds up to being something concise and hopefully beautiful.
And then just and yeah, and they are beautiful. I think that's the thing. You just
Thank
look at them
you.
and I can see why they're so successful. I can see why all of your work is so popular because it just looks like beautiful oil painting. There's something that just like some works designed to like provoke in different directions, but with yours it always to me just makes my heart sing a little bit.
No, that's really like that's amazing because that's really what I want for my work to do. I think I come from kind of a commercial corporate background. I studied advertising, so I understand like art needs to say things and needs to express and all of that. And for me it's just kind of like a way that I want to explore the world and explore materials and then to just like evoke joy is just such
Hmm.
an amazing kind of to hear that to me is just so beautiful. That's well, that's what I want. I just want my work to make people feel good.
And it must do, right? Because the proof's in the pudding, I suppose. You're an extremely popular needlework. You've had lots of, I mean, one
Thank
thing
you.
I did want to talk about is your like the commercial success, I guess you've had and the way you've been able to do that. But there's a like pre-conversation before all of that. But I mean, it must be, I don't know what I'm trying to say really. I was going to say, do you believe in yourself? That sounds a bit daft. But it's like, I guess there's, for a lot of people, when they're putting their work out there, you need that kind of validation. I guess you got your validation pretty hard and pretty fast at the start.
Well, I thought about this a lot, because I teach and because I mentor and I speak to people in different levels and different places in their career, and by no means do I think that I'm like at the top. And I have mentors, and I go to mentors even now. I just also believe in that kind of like that sharing and that openness of like where you're
Mm,
at and what you can give and how everyone can share. But I've noticed that there's a lot of self doubt in most of us and trying to figure out, an imposter syndrome and then all these kind of like buzzwords for not that imposter syndrome is just a buzzword, but there's a lot of
mm.
language around those feelings of self-doubt, insecurities, maybe a lack of confidence, or anxiety around your work, imposter syndrome, all of that. And trying to figure out like what are the differences but that some people have and that other people don't. And so because some people are like so confident and they put their work out so how? What are you hinging this like absolute confidence on, especially when it comes to music? You're like, gosh, that's
Mm.
terrible. But I realize it's support. I feel really grateful. My parents aren't necessarily creative. I would say my mom is not a creative at all. Um, and she's just so relentlessly supportive. She'd be like, I'd come home with this like crazy haircut, be like bleach, like bleach, bleach, bleach. And like, I don't know if you know a purdy. It's like a solid bowl cut, shaved underneath with like two
Okay.
long pieces. Just like
Okay.
absolutely crazy, like alien. And she'd go, okay, I mean, I don't get it, but it's very you, you know?
Nice. Yeah.
And like, stuff like that. So just kind of feeling like, even your bad things are like you're not maybe they're maybe not perfect and they're not great and you're not going to get like unwavering kind of like glorification, but that, like, it's good, you're good, like, whatever you need, we're here, like, let us know. And that support really helps, I think, help me bolster a lot of like self confidence and also set a tone that, like, even if people don't like something, they're probably going to be nice, and that
Mm,
like way of entering and living in the world, I think has really helped me. So when I would make something, I didn't I would put it online and share it, not in the way that I was like, "This is the greatest thing ever created," but kinda like, "Hey, look what I did," or like, "Hey,
mm,
this is cool," or like and I think that expectations that the world is nicer than, uh, maybe some other people have, some I think has really helped me, and I think, like, yeah, that's been so with I believe in myself is one thing, but I think it's more that, like, I believe in others. I believe that
mhm.
people are, like, inherently nice and good and like seeing things that are different, and then they'll carry on with their lives, and so will you.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder whether like imposter syndrome is something you should all go through because it means you're transforming. I
Yeah.
wonder whether
Yes.
caterpillars go through a moment of imposter syndrome on the way to becoming butterflies. You know what I mean? Like, hang on a minute, is this the butterfly I'm really meant to be? Maybe I'm more of a moth or something. But it's that
Yeah.
pushing yourself out of your comfort zones, isn't it? It's that growth.
Totally. And I think imposter syndrome is very healthy in a way. It's also a part of like a creative process where we you want more, we push ourselves, we want to be more creative, we want new ideas. And so you're constantly making yourself somewhat uncomfortable. And in that
Mm,
discomfort, you're like, do I belong here? Is this right? Isn't this right? Is this hang on, these people like this thing? I don't even know if is it likable? Why do they like it? Like all of those kind of like questions are I think like really like can really be a sign of like a like a strong will for betterment.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the same with public speaking, isn't it? Some people, like these days, I don't really mind public speaking because I've done it so many times. But I can
Mm.
still remember being absolutely petrified in the first stages. And still, if it's something quite important, I still need to go to the loo just beforehand, almost immediately beforehand, as like part of the process, because it still matters. But it's like that's the micro version of crushing dread, which is the thing you face the first time you step up to it.
Totally. And like nerves, I always think about nerves whenever you're nervous, it means that you care,
Mm,
and like you should be doing stuff in your life that you care about. So if you're nervous, you're like, this is a byproduct of me doing something that matters.
yeah, definitely. And if you don't feel that anymore, then get the bus home because yeah, I think that's it. I don't
Yeah.
I'm often bewildered when I see people who are just like staring into space doing something. Like even if you're like working in a supermarket checkout, which I've done, or pushing shopping trolley. I used to have a job pushing shopping trolleys, which is about as the most unfulfilling job you had. But we decided to see what the longest number of shopping trolleys we could push. Answer 62, sub answer may hit
62.
car in cup. 62 shopping trolleys in one line. Quite hard to stop when it gets going, though. I'll tell you that much.
I'm
Sorry
gonna
to the
say
man with the Land Rover.
how many corners? Is
Just
that
a
just
straight
straight?
line at that point. Yeah, the,
Just a
the
straight line. Okay,
curvature,
okay.
the physics. But I mean, seriously, you should see me wield a single shopping trolley now. It's like ballet. Swear to God. How did you start all of this? Did you do much needlework when you were young?
My mom would make clothes, so she would make clothes for kids and stuff like that, and just she had like sewing around the house. So I think like I've never really thought about sewing, clothing, embroidery, anything that's like a creative outlet, and always just kind of felt like just like, this is stuff, this is making, it's around the house, whatever. And then I got really into the idea of being a fashion designer. So I was like, I'm gonna be Fishhook. Fishhook is a very strange little town in Cape Town that I grew up in. I was like, I'm gonna be Fishhook's next Coco Chanel. And I dropped out of I dropped out of mainstream school and I studied a visual arts matric. So I did like a kind of an alternative matric, and I was like, this is all so that I can be this incredible fashion designer. And at the time, my mom was kind of like would show me how to use a sewing machine. So I'd make clothes out of like old curtains, and they would like so I couldn't put my arms down, but I was like super chapped. And then I studied fashion for 2 weeks, and I was like, ugh.
Stupid.
I kind of hate this. And I had like really known when I said that visual arts matric, I really knew what it was to like love what I did. Like I just loved it. We did potato print. I mean, who wouldn't love doing potato printing as a school subject? But we did potato printing. We did like graphic design. We did all of these things, and I just like it just resonated. Like it just felt so good in my body. And then I did fashion, and I was like, oh not for me. So I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I really don't want to do this. The pragmatic, amazing woman that she is, she said, if you're going to drop out, do it now so we can get our money back. So I was like, okay, cool, better commit. And then I'd spent the next kind of year just interning, just doing a bunch of stuff through a process of elimination, figuring out what I like didn't want to do. And then I decided to study advertising because it really encompassed the biggest kind of range of creative outlets. Because I kind of figured like I actually think I just want to do everything. And advertising with art direction, it had like you could go from conceptualizing to executing your projects using photography or using craft and all of that. So while I was studying advertising, it happened to be above a fabric store, and my like fellow colleague students would draw these little like monsters, and I'd run down to the fabric store and I would buy fabric, and then I would start like stitching these monsters or characters together from my just from my like very basic sewing background with my mom. And yeah, then these kind of monsters started evolving, and the little like doodles, like I would do like a little anchor, and then the doodles started like growing and getting a little bit more complex, and then I stitched a face onto a piece of fabric, and then that just yeah, that kind of just became a little bit more complicated and then became
And
my life.
that was all kind of self-taught. It was all just like feeling it out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The embroidery aspect definitely was just self-taught. I'll confess, and I have
Mm.
confessed this before, but I'll confess again. I thought that I had invented embroidery. I like I had like a piece of scrap felt from in my bag from making these toys, and like just a needle and thread. And I was working at a gallery, and the gallery owner was like, "You need to email people for sales." And I was like, "Cool, cool, cool." And I had a laptop that he gave me, and I could not open it. Like I could not for the life of me open it. I was trying to like press the little buttons, and this would not open. So, and later on, I realized that those buttons were actually hinges. Cool, very chill. And and then I just would, and then so I had to look busy because if he came down and I was just sitting there empty-handed, then he would know that I was the type of person who couldn't open a laptop. So I looked through my bag and all I had was a scrap piece of fabric and felt, and then I just used it and I kind of drew a picture of a bunny, and I was like, oh yeah, I've invented something new. Nobody knows about this thing where you can use thread to make pictures. I'm calling it thread sketching. I put it on my blog. I used to have a blog called Mother Clough. And yeah, I put it on my blog and I was like, I've invented this thing called thread sketching. And that's how my journey of embroidery started. It was pure arrogance.
I think you might have invented thread sketching though. The fact that it's universally considered as embroidery is just semantics, surely.
I know. And has anyone ever stitched in only red thread?
Yeah, no,
Yes,
well, I mean,
yes.
other than the red work
Yeah.
artists, yeah, no, surely not at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, other than, like, the whole of Eastern Europe for the last, like, 300 years, 400
Yeah, yeah,
years.
yeah. Can you remember what it was about fashion that didn't float your boat?
It was it felt too restrictive. So I kind of wanted to, like, conceptualize stuff. I wanted to do the prints on the fabric, and I think it just was, like, that is something that you would get to, but I just wanted to do it all now, today, you know? So and coming from doing that, like, alternative visual arts where we did something, like, kind of creative every day, it just felt too linear and a little bit too slow, I guess. We did history of fashion, which weirdly I love, but the actual process, the creative element of it just wasn't wasn't thrilling enough for me at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. So you're more sort of big picture. Would it be like you'd see the fashion shows and maybe upon reflection, like running the fashion show is the thing, not necessarily making the clothes that go in the fashion show? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's would I think it would be the making of the clothes, but I think it would be like I just wanted to do it all that day. I wanted to draw the picture, I wanted to like paint on the fabric, I wanted to cut the fabric out, and obviously you're starting a course from scratch. They were like, "This is a pattern," and I was like, I don't want to do, this is a French curve. And I'm like, all of this. And I mean, I have huge respect for fashion designers because of how nuanced all those details are, but I'm not that detail orientated. I mean, if you see the back of my embroideries, it's kind of like it outs my personality. But yeah, I'm not so I think I would love to do something with fashion now, like a whole capsule, but I think, I want to like draw and paint and do and put it all together, as opposed to like what actually to be a real good fashion designer requires, which is patience.
Mm. There's a show that me and my wife, Mary, have been watching lately over here called Interior Design Masters. So it's a bit like the Great British Bake Off, but instead of making cakes, they're like designing spaces, commercial spaces. So obviously it
Wow.
starts off with like, 8 people, goes down to 2 for the final. But within that, they have to like design the rooms. They have tradespeople to help, but there's a lot of those bits and pieces, creating ideas to go into it, sometimes building things, definitely painting the ceilings, all of those sorts of stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like that total package. You know what I mean? I reckon you'd be awesome at that.
totally. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to see kind of like also how these things connect. So there was obviously something in me that loved fabric, loved fashion, and like subsequently I've worked in fashion. I worked
Mm,
for Gucci, I've worked for Joby, I've done some shoe designs for Adidas, stuff like that. And it's amazing to be able to be a part of that. So it's really cool to see that like nothing goes to waste, and like that you obviously have like a core narrative and a core kind of dream, if that makes sense. And that if
hmm.
you just keep following your intuition, that these pieces will like pull together and create like the bigger pictures.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And upon reflection, you can kind of see that. But at the time, it's like, who's to say, isn't it? Like you say, just follow your intuition. So you invented needlework. Let's call it. You invented
Yes.
embroidery,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you did some stuff with tennis rackets. What happened in betwixt those times?
Well, the inventing of the embroidery happened while I was studying art direction and when I was studying at Red and Yellow. And then I left Red and Yellow, finished, graduated, and I started working at a media company called Media 24. And we were we were working like designing apps when there was like I think the iPhone 1 came out, so we're kind of like
Okay.
ahead of our time. Yeah,
Hmm.
that was very cool. Um, but I was like the junior, so I was doing a lot of like weird things like banners for websites where you can win a gun, like strange things. And then and then I also did that for a while and I just kind of like got really uncomfortable. I was like, this is just not it. Like this is not the thing.
Mm.
Working the 9 to 5 wasn't I was also waitressing while I was studying and I kind of missed weirdly enough. I missed waitressing. I missed like being on my feet. I missed the social element of it. So I left. I'm excellent at quitting. I'm a great quitter. I'm a huge advocate for quitting. Not stopping working, but quitting.
I was curious about art direction because it sounds like it could be something that's brilliant, but it sounds like it could be, I don't know, massive. How would you like what's art direction? How do you do art directing?
I guess art direction is kind of like concept orientation. It depends on what industry. So if you are like in a film, art directing something would be like deciding on its look and its feel, kind of like making sure that your wardrobe, everything kind of fits within that. From my understanding of art direction in film, when it comes to advertising, it's your concept, it's your, you would work with a copywriter to build to build the concept, the look and feel of an advert. So in a way, it's actually been really beneficial to have this like strong corporate background because I've been able to look at my work, brand it, see myself kind of as a corporate entity in a way, and then like package myself,
Yeah.
my work, my workshops, my kits, things like that, really. I mean, I don't know if I've done a great job of it, but I'm definitely trying. And I think it helps as opposed to coming at it purely from an artist perspective, which is wonderful, but just for my personality isn't doesn't really work. But to just be about the work and then to see where it goes. The art direction, graphic design kind of background and education has given me tools to package myself to and to do things with autonomy, really to be able to like kind of see the big picture and do all the little bits that it requires to fulfill it.
Because one of the things that's always been impressive to me is like some of the collab work that you've done. Because like you said, you've worked with some big names. Like you've done
Mm.
trainers with Adidas, which to me feels like about as big as it can get. Can you talk about that? Like, how you go about it,
Yeah.
what the process is, how much fun it is?
Oh, it's super fun. I think the first thing that like if I had to give advice to anybody who especially from a needlework perspective who gets approached by brands, make sure that the brand aligns with your ethos and that the project aligns with what you want to be doing with yourself and your career. Needlework is just, it takes so long. So to be doing something with resistance is really, really bad, and it will come out in the work, and it will really be such a waste of your own time as well as your client's time. So it's like, you know, just don't do it. I'm hyper protective over what I take on. So I make sure that if I do take on a job, it's something that I'm like either find challenging, or like I know that there's going to be a benefit at the end of the day that will keep me like passionate and excited about the project. So that's like my main thing. I think if I had to say to anybody, if corporate approaches you, make sure that you're like 100% invested in the job. Be protective of your time and your aesthetic and your, yes, your all of that. And um and then I love working. I think having a background with corporate, working as a designer, it's really like helped me in a way that like I'm able to compartmentalize things like this is a job. The client is sometimes right, like not always, but they're sometimes right. Like you are doing something for them within their vision, and to collaborate is important, but that also means that you need to listen. Criticism is also okay. Like you can't be like super sensitive every time they're like, is it like, and most corporates are really good and they'll be like, we absolutely love it. But if you don't like, could we just try a version that's like this and this? Don't like get into a strop because then it's fun, then you get to work with people. And usually, you know, you see a job like or a brand and it's somebody like Adidas, and you're like, oh wow, you're dealing with these like big powers that be, but actually they're employees that work for this company that are like usually super excited for the projects as well. And like you just like work to make sure that you get to draw that magic out of each other and make it as fun as possible. And yeah, I've been very protective over what I take on, and I've like some loves the works that I've been able to do with a lot of these big brands. Even I've done a few projects that are kind of even more corporate, like medical work. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been really amazing.
Do you have a sort of like three drafts and then I'm going to go for it kind of perspective? Because I guess you can iterate as much as you like, and that's fine when it's digital. But when it's something
Mhm.
analog like needlework, presumably there has to come a point where you go, right, I've got to do this now.
Yeah, so I have a quite a strict setup when it comes to that, kind of like a T's and C's, where I'm like, okay, we're going to do some digital drawings. Either I supply the reference image or you supply the reference image. We have to sign off on that reference image before we go to the next step. So you have to be sure that this is, say now it's a portrait of a person, you go, this, make sure that this is the one that you want, because further down the line you can't change it. Then I'll do digital drawings. So then the digital drawings will be with Procreate on the iPad. I'll do like one or two ideas with it, colorways, things like that. And then I now have a set like three free change rule. And then over and
Hmm.
above that, there's an hourly fee, just because for time constraints. And then what I also do is I'll have like, if they have a deadline, say now the deadline is at the end of April, I know the piece is going to be however big, then I'd say, okay, the drawing needs to be signed off by this date in April because I need 3 weeks to sew. So just kind of like having some terms that are quite strict before, and I'll just be like, okay, here's for the nitty gritty. Like these are the things for me to be able to make work that you're going to be happy with and I'm going to be happy with, because you need to be considerate of your time, and clients, they don't know how long something takes. Like
Uh,
they just don't. It's up to you to essentially educate them on that process. Um, even things like colors. So they'll be like, we need this color. And I'll be like, I can get as close to that color as possible, but I'm restricted by the threads that I have access to. So here's like if it's DMC, here's the DMC book of
mm,
colors. Take a pick, go mad. I'll buy as many 880s as you need.
mm.
So things like that.
And then the flip of that is we don't know how much budget they've got. Like I always think pricing is the hardest thing for someone,
Mm,
particularly who's new to this. Like, have you got any
mm.
tips? Would you say think of a number, stick an extra zero on the end of it, and make that your first pitch, or any of that sort of stuff?
Well, often, like I said, clients kind of know what they want, but also don't know, and they don't know like the rules and the variables that it requires. So say now they're like, oh, I want a picture of my dog. So you're like, okay, great. Now, how much is it going to be? Well, it depends on the picture of the dog, right? So if you're doing a picture of the whole dog or just the face, if it's the whole dog and they want the face and the details in the eyes, then the whole thing needs to be bigger. So you kind of have to say, okay, once I know the scope of the project, I'm able to quote appropriately. So then we'll do that. Other jobs, I'll say there's two ways to go about it. One, like let's work on what the scope of the project is, and then I'll cost accordingly. Or you can let me know what your budget is, and then we can work the scope of the project based on the budget.
Mm.
So if your budget is £2, it can be this big. If it's £20, it can be that big.
Mm.
So this, I kind of do that because a lot of the time, especially on the, especially with big brands, they know what they have. They're like, we've got £40,000 for this. We have £2 for this. They'll know. They actually know, and they'll tell
Mm.
you, like, that's a bit out of budget. So it's like you knew that time. You got those numbers. Tell me what those numbers are. You know, so
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing, isn't it? And that's where the imposter syndrome again kind of kicks in, isn't it? Because you've got to kind of hold your nerve. I am no expert at this, but I know that, you have to be firm and you have to defend your territory and be willing to just ask them quite openly what the budget is. And if they are a bit cagey, maybe go back and challenge that. Would that be right?
yeah. Yeah, I would say, I give them the option to be like, look, there's two ways to do this. You can let me know what the budget is, and I'll scale the work based on your budget, and like transparently, or what your budget is based on. I recently got contacted about a job, and they told me what they in the email said our budget is this, which is quite a fair amount below what I would charge for an original. So I said, but they just need it for a digital thing. So I said, that's okay. We'll totally do this. But under the terms that I keep the original work that I can then hopefully sell on. So there's ways
Mm.
to make it work. Again, if the project resonates with you, because if the money doesn't make sense and it's not good enough, don't do it because it's going to feel awful.
Mm.
You're going to get an email from them at like 12 at night, and you're going to be like, you don't pay me enough to answer an email at midnight. So if the money is good, you don't have that, you feel good. Again, always just protect your joy around the work and your
Mm.
value. And I do the same as well. Like, I don't overcharge because it doesn't, at least what I feel like, I don't overcharge because that also feels ugly.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting
Yeah.
with like, how do I give them everything that I can within this context, because I feel like it's worth more than they're giving me.
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? You wish you could just take the gameplay out of it, but unfortunately, the gameplay is part of it, isn't it? So that people can don't know, get the best value from their standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, and you just have to it just has to make sense to you. You can guess, and it's the same as like one person can find something cheap, another person finds it expensive. It's like all subjective at the end of the day. So you really have to keep your center with that and go like, this is what I think is going to make sense to me. I'm going to do the work really well with this number. I'm not going to feel guilty because I'm overcharging. I'm not going to feel taken advantage of because I'm undercharging. And if I lose the job because the numbers don't make sense, that's fine. I have space to create something else.
How do you manage the balance between commercial work, which can be financially valuable, and then your own artistic path?
That's a very interesting question. I have found I've recently kind of about a year ago kind of hit a bit of a wobble because I realized that I have been taking on commercial work to avoid doing my personal work.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
it's so much, yeah,
Like procrastination.
it's like procrastination. It's
Yes.
also having a sounding board. It's like, so this person likes my work. They've given me a brief. I can fulfill it. I can make them happy. I know that it will be okay because they say it's okay. So I'm actually not responsible emotionally for any of this stuff, if that makes sense. So I
Mm.
took on a lot of corporate work always, and then kind of was like, oh, I'll make this piece that I've been wanting to make for 2 years when it's done. I'll make this when it's done. And I just kept taking on these jobs and these jobs and these jobs because, again, you've got the financial incentive, you've got the kind of validation that it gives you, and you've got the brief. So, when you're just making work for yourself, it's boundless. So you don't have the guardrails that I guess maybe as a designer as well, I enjoy the brief, I enjoy the guardrails, I enjoy okay, it can only be this big and use two colors. Perfect. Great. Now I know what to do and how to go. And then I can have ideas within that. So yeah, so I think I spent a lot of time last year in New Zealand. Was my mom, she was going through treatment, and then, I couldn't really do much commercial work while I was there because I had limited space. I just took a whole bunch of my materials, and then I had to start working towards a show. Um, and yeah, so finding that balance it's very difficult. You just kind of have to be self-aware of, like, again, that joy and that feeling inside of, like, what why am I not doing what I want to do? Am I enjoying
Mm,
this? What do I need? And then you go, like, what does my career need as well?
mm.
Which, yeah, I don't know the answer of that. I don't know the answer of that one.
How long do you think you can pull the wool over your own eyes for that stuff? Because it's like creative procrastination, isn't it? It's like your office is never tidier than when you've got a deadline. It's all of those kind of things, isn't it? Doing something useful, but not the thing you're meant to be doing.
Oh, forever. Forever. I don't think it ever ends. I realized this the other day. I was like, I was thinking about original thoughts and how, like, often do we actually have original thoughts? Or how often
Mm,
are we just, like, saying the same things? And then I was like, I don't know if I've had an original thought for a long time, especially when it comes to this. I've been like, why am I not doing my own work? Why am I not more disciplined? Why can't I get a routine down? Why? And I was like, I have been feeling this for about 10 years, and I don't think it's going to end. I think that
what's
this
of them?
is going to see me all the way through. And that's maybe just the disposition, the creative disposition. I'm not
Mm,
productive enough. I'm not exercising enough. I'm not seeing my friends because I am being productive. I'm burnt out. Like, where that balance, that's constant, that balance, playing that game.
mm. I think
Yeah,
one of the things I struggled with, like I've got a piece of cross stitch on the go now, which is like the first, not original idea, but the first creative idea I've had for myself in a very, very long time. And it's been interesting to
that's
like
awesome.
look back and see that idea coming. But then also I think sometimes, like I see so much stuff on Instagram. You'll see people who've like say your creative ideas are pointing in five different directions. You'll see people who are pointing in the same direction, and it's almost like that just knocks your trajectory. Like you suddenly think, oh, well,
Yes.
somebody's already done that thing. There's no point in me trying to do that. And you can kind of get
Yeah.
buffeted along, can't you, down these different rails? And sometimes you think, I just need to go and sit up on a mountain for a month and then just I'll have an idea because I haven't been influenced by anything else.
Well, I have a theory about social media and Instagram and what it's robbing us of, because there's the comparative element of it, which is like what you're saying is that you have this trajectory, you have this momentum, and then you scroll and you see something, and then you're like, yeah, takes the wind out of your sail.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the other things that it takes from us, which is such a small but huge thing, is tinkering. I don't know when last you tinkered. I never tinker anymore. I used to tinker all the time. I was like, you sit and you're a little bit bored, and then you take out like a piece of paper, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing, and you like look through a magazine, like, oh, such a nice picture. Maybe I should like, oh, I should this. I want to draw this, but we just
Mm.
don't do that anymore. You sit like I shouldn't speak for the rest of humanity. I spend my time scrolling 20, 30 minutes when I would have been bored, an hour in the day, however long, when I would have been bored, and like harnessing that boredom and stimulating myself. I'm just stimulated looking at other people's things and then feeling like a little bit rubbish. You're like, oh, I haven't updated my Instagram in a while. And should I be? And like, why haven't I? And then you're super critical, but you're still scrolling instead of just tinkering around.
Yeah. It reminds me of if you ever go to sell your house and how you, about a month before you sell your house or when the house goes on the market, you do all the jobs to make your house look nice that you haven't
Oh, yeah.
done in the 5 years you've been living in the house up to that point or something, you're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy just to let it all slide. So I think like, yeah, those projects and that those original ideas, now I think we have to be so much more conscious to carve out time for them, because we just saturate ourselves.
I would like to ask you about color
Mm,
theory and specifically your
yes.
use of color, because I know that you have a philosophy about it and I think it merits sharing.
Well, I believe my philosophy on color is that everybody has a color language. This is kind of what I teach, is that like we all have an innate color language. So when you open up your cupboard and you see your clothes, or when you go to a fabric store and you see you'll see three different types of floral fabrics. They're the same floral fabric, different colorways. One will stand out more than the others. So my thing is like you have an innate color language, right? So it's not really about colors being right or wrong, because I know a lot of people like, how do you choose the right colors? Colors aren't right or wrong. You have the colors that you like, the colors that bring you joy, that make you happy. Those colors are right. When it comes to your work, those colors are right. And then it's about how do you utilize them. So there's a saying, I don't know who said it, but I'm gonna pretend like I did.
Yeah.
Um, that color gets the credits, but value does the work. So the most important thing to understand is values. So we can all see in black and white, right? You watch a black and white movie, you see a photograph in black and white, you can tell what it is. It is legible to our eyes, to our brains. So really, that's not about color, that's about value. It's about dark areas and light areas. So you can apply in a dark area. So now if you imagine in front of you a black and white, whatever you're looking at, imagine taking a snapshot, you put it in black and white. And the dark areas in that photograph, you can apply that dark area. It can be a dark green, it can be a dark blue, it can be a dark red, which is brown. It can be a dark green. It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that the values are right. In the light areas, those can be, or in the mid-tone areas, it can be any color really. It's just about making sure that the value that's in that area is right. So when it comes to my work, I just try and like get the values right. Say if I want to put it, I'll just look in my box and I'll be like, oh, I really want to use pink. I'm all like excited and jazzed about pink. Or I pre-choose a color palette. So I'll say, like at the moment, I'm working on a piece that's yellows, greens, and pinks with some oranges or purples in there just to like tie it together. And I just try and appropriately put the right shade of pink in the right kind of area, the right yellows, the right, you know. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think it makes sense in the terms of your work as well, because you'll often marry up, I don't know, blues and pinks. So you'll marry up colors that aren't natural bedfellows, but the way that you do
Yeah.
it, I guess, expresses those values. And so it kind of works. And from what you're saying, as long as you go, a dark space needs a darker color than a light space, if you think about it in black and
Mm.
white terms, then you can put two colors together however you want. It should still produce the right results.
Yeah. It will still be
Wow.
legible to your brain for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, so everything really just works on values. So like even when you look around and you think about a spectrum. So I teach like 1 to 5. So a very light, a mid light, a medium dark, and a dark. And then you take a photograph and you break it up into islands. So say now you take a piece of tracing paper, you trace around your lightest area, you trace around your darkest area, you trace around your middle areas, and then those kind of the spaces, those the tones in between, and using those 5 tones of light, middle, light, middle, dark, and then applying any color. So if you it does get a bit time twisty,
Seriously.
but you're 1 to 5. So if you decide that your darkest tone is going to be a dark blue and your lightest tone is going to be like a really light yellow, your middle tone is going to be pink, and then your tones your shades in between all match up from the 1 to 5, you're going to have a workable color palette. So that's really what it is creating a color palette. And then the most exciting part is that that color palette can be anything that makes you happy. So that's like
Hmm.
neon pink, black, and tan. Go for it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well because that idea of having four zones is something it was making me think about when you get quilts and quilts and applique. That kind of work can't have the tonal gradation that you can get by thread painting and that kind of thing. So they do have to make those decisions. Luke Haynes did a
Mm.
lot of portraits, and it would be that thing. They'd just be like 5 colors, and like you say, I guess he's mapped out those islands, can make those pieces, and then quilt the whole thing together.
Yeah, a great way to also see it is to like I wouldn't say study because it sounds like a lot more complicated than it is, but to just like really look at stencil art. So like
Mm,
stencil art that's made of like different, you can even Google like four color stencil, and then you'll
mm.
see there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the same thing, you can essentially make quilts and patterns and stuff out of that. You can even do embroideries and silk stitch, and you'll get shading. And obviously, the more steps you have, if it's a 7 or 8 or 9 color stencil, then it's workable
Yeah,
and they'll
yeah,
be
and I
more
guess it would be
realistic.
the same with like lino print and that kind of thing, isn't it? It's
Uh-huh.
that same, like you
Hmm.
say, stencils and prints. There's a book that we've got, I'm just looking it up now, called Isan Boshi, the 1 Inch Boy, and it's by Ichinori. And it's a story about a boy who's like 1 inch tall and like what happens to him. But the art style is basically it's like lino print, but there's only 3 colors. There's an orange, there's a blue, and
Oh,
there's a yellow. And obviously,
mm,
some of it happens with the overlap between those 2 colors, but it's just stunning because it's so
yeah.
simple and yet it's so like well crafted just with those applications of those colors.
And
What?
those colors will be different values, right? So I'm sure
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
dark
yeah, yeah,
blue, a light, so your brain can read it.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is when you deconstruct it as the way you've done there, suddenly it makes a lot seems a lot clearer. I think I'm having a moment
Hmm.
of clarity. I'm sure in about two
Yeah.
hours' time I will be back in the fog again. What do you think about when people's color tastes change? What's that all about? You know,
I
like
think they
for
all
instance,
change.
like I don't know, we've moved houses quite a few times, and the wallpapers that we had in 2 houses ago, we look at them now and we don't feel like they're the right colours for the property that we live in. We don't, my wife is the colour genius in our house. There's a lot more pink in this house than there has ever been in another house, and I just wonder what your take on how that comes to bear, how we evolve through our colour preferences.
I think maybe it's like it's exposure is one part of it. You know, you start seeing it's the same as skinny jeans. I don't know if you remember when you saw skinny jeans for the first time. You're like, "What is going on here? You people look crazy." And then, like maybe 3 months later, you're like, "You know what I really need? You know what make me look
You might
amazing?"
be
Like,
right.
so, so I think there's something to do with that. I know that and colors go in and out of fashion. Like if you think about pink, I mean, my house is full of pink, and it's that like dusky granny
Hmm.
pink, which I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure when it was in fashion 40 years ago, they weren't like, this is granny pink, and I love it. I'm pretty sure they were like, this is very contemporary. So I think it's kind of like that. Like I've recently kind of shifted into like a very yellow phase. I don't know how that happened, but I've
Mm.
also been like really loving like a 70s aesthetic. So I think it's just but it's also exposure. I think I'm starting to see more and more yellows and mustards and browns kind of coming in around me. So and we do also get sick of what's around us, like the hedonic treadmill. You know, you buy a lot of blue and then you see a lot of blue and then it doesn't resonate the same way as when you saw it the
Mm.
first time when everything was yellow. So yeah, I think it's just and we change.
Mm.
Skinny jeans.
Oh,
I
I
was thinking
hate
about them
skinny
again the other
jeans now,
day.
man.
Do
Jesus.
you? Have you always hated them?
Well, the problem I've got is I've got like kind of Scottish legs. I've got quite large calf muscles. So it just doesn't work. They just ride
Oh,
up.
large calves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very good at like
Oh,
heavy
so the
lifting.
bottom's wider than the top.
No, I'm not like a freak. Like I've got quite big thighs as well. It's just that skinny jeans and me just aren't happy because, like I say, what happens is over time they just
Yeah,
slowly
yeah,
ride
yeah.
up, and then I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
now you can see my ankles and see what horrible socks I'm wearing. Do you find that color evolution thing is that something you can feel when you're making work? Like you might be stitching a certain color way as an average, and maybe you go, actually, I'm getting a little bit tired, or is it quite fluid, or is your use of color dependent on the subject matter?
I think it's very fluid. Yeah, I think I can see the evolution. I can see there's times where I go through stuff, but then it's funny. It's like I keep trying to break a certain pattern of like very strong orange, very strong warm tones, and like and solid blue and purple shadows, and then I see myself kind of like going back towards there. So I'm trying to consciously limit myself and to break those patterns. Um, but it is quite fluid. You do have that like innate kind of like comfort in certain colors, and then I find myself wanting to change and then changing, and then like but having to make like a big effort to do that.
Mm, mm. I
Did that
guess your
answer your
use of
question?
colours, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no wrong answer here, I don't think. But I think I would always say to people, like, if they were stitching something that was quite big of a certain colour palette, it's good to have something small of a different colour palette just so that you can give yourself that break when you need it. But I guess with your
Totally.
work, your use of colour is fairly you're fairly across the spectrum. So I guess you don't get too bored. Like this piece that I was talking about that I'm doing is 4 shades of blue. And already I can tell I'm getting a little
Oof.
bit bored of it. So I might have to do something
Oh,
that's a little bit yellow or something. Yeah, just to kind of.
yeah. A lot of my color choices are because of that feeling is that, I'll be working with something, especially in the beginning when I hadn't really figured out color. It's all been very like natural, like intuitively built. I'd be like working on something and I'm like, if I have to see another shade of orange, I'm gonna put, and then I'll just be like, okay, I'll get the green. I'll just grab the green and I'll figure out like how to, and then I'll see it in the box and it looks so juicy and I just like have to use it and I'll grab it and I'll just figure out where it belongs. So there's been a lot of that in my work and then like figuring out how to use it, which has kind of built the understanding of values and color. But that feeling, oh, I know it so well. That feeling of like 4 shades of blue, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I know. It seems like a good idea. It's a valid thing that I'm doing, but I must admit, I'm just a bit like,
Mm,
oh.
mm. But
And
it's gonna
then
be beautiful when it's done.
somebody else can be the judge of that. Punch needle. That was the other thing I wanted to ask you
Mm,
about. You've done a
mm.
bit of punch needle. You did a very groovy piece not that long
Dabbled?
ago. Yeah. So how do you feel
Yeah.
about punch needle?
So actually, the reason we got the punch needle and I started it is I was asked to do like an interactive embroidery at a festival. It's called Green Pop. So it's like a tree planting festival. And I was like, sure, I'll do an interactive embroidery. And then I was like, well, what? What's an and then try to figure it out. And I worked with my friend Cynthia. She's part of this collective that we just launching now, and she's a ceramicist, and she works quite with a lot of like 2-dimensional designs. And I found that we kind of like spoke back and forth about how do we make this interactive embroidery. And what it ended up doing is we built a big I think it was 2.2 meter by 1 meter canvas. And then we had faces on the front that people could embroider from the front and then punch needle the back, like designs from the back. So it could be worked on from both sides. So we were like,
Okay.
this is a brilliant idea. And they were like, but now how do we punch needle? So, so we got some punch needles, we got a little punch drunk, maybe had a little bit too much wine, figured out how to use it in front of a fireplace. It was magical. And then we took it to this festival. And then from there I really I've really enjoyed working and we've been putting it into backgrounds and like kind of integrating it as like a different texture. Um Imagine trying to do that in the future with tufting. I'd love to do something big with like big
Mm,
embroidered elements. Um so yeah, that was kind of how the punch needle. It's great. I mean, for me, there's limitations in terms of shading. So
mm.
it kind of needs to be the container for the embroidery. But yeah, it's lots of fun.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing tufted rugs. I mean, I interviewed Lee Rude, who does fantastic tufted rugs. She's NeedleXChange. I'm going to say number 6. Look it up wherever you get your podcasts. And I really like the look of it. There's a real immediacy there when you do those kind of pieces. But you did one that was
Yeah.
particularly catching. I'm trying to find the name of it, but it was of a sort of a lady, like just the jacket was like greens and yellows and reds and
Yes.
symbols on them and all those kind of things. And just the texture of that was almost like it was a perfect fit because what the face was embroidered, very kind of
Mm.
smooth and elegant. And then you just got this real like jackety thing going on.
Yeah, that's I can't remember what I called it. I think it's looking back, something like looking good, looking back, or something along those lines. So it was a part of it, a 3 series of somebody looking kind of like in the distance, somebody looking straight into the camera, and then someone looking over their shoulder. And it was part of the exhibition that I did last year at Paradigm Gallery. I did a
Mm,
show called Sunstrings Attached. So
mm.
yeah, so it was part of that. I love doing that. I've actually been approached recently to do another portrait. I don't know, fingers crossed it works out, but another portrait in that style for magazine, and I'm excited to take that again to another level.
Yeah, that's very groovy. That's very groovy. Tell me about the collective. That sounds interesting.
Oh, very excited. Very, very excited about this. So we are called Coda Collective and we are working towards a show. So there are 4 of us at the moment. One is a oil painter, another is a painter who works more like 2-dimensional painting style, and then Cynthia the ceramicist. So and we're working together on a show. We're doing our first show, like our mini launch show in September. We've got our location, and yeah, we're doing a couple collaborations. We're all collaborating together with Cynthia to do like I'll be doing like a ceramic embroidery piece. Andrew, he's painting on ceramics and he's doing like a very Western style thing. And we're just kind of trying to create, because we all have done shows, we've all exhibited, but we wanted to kind of see what it's like without the guardrails of a gallery.
Mm.
I say that I worked with Paradigm in Philadelphia last year. I love them. I'm super excited to do a show with them again. I've also only ever done, other than with them, only ever done shows myself. So
Mhm.
it's not kind of new for me, but for the other artists, it's quite exciting for us to like build this thing together. And we'll be doing workshops through the show, collaborations. So yeah, and then hopefully build up a system where we can bring in other artist friends and keep making a platform where we have like a little bit more autonomy on how we present ourselves and yeah, build our careers and our creative energies together, I guess.
How does it feel to be collaborating with people of different disciplines? I guess that's quite different to other collaborative jobs you've done.
It's exciting. I mean, we have a lot in common and we're close friends. So we'll be like we just did a 5-day hike in Nature's Valley. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of South Africa. And we're all like on this hike and we're all together and we're like, wouldn't it be cool if we like set a piece that's like from one of the photos on the hike and then like Cynthia can like make this, and we just get all like so jazzed about it. It
Mm.
obviously has its hiccups, well not hiccups, but it has its nuances because we're also friends. So we've got to like figure out how to like be completely diplomatic and like, sometimes I was saying sometimes it feels like a little bit more of like a consensus than a collaboration. We've got like
Mm.
WhatsApp
Yeah.
polls, like what are we going to call this? But this is
Mm.
to keep the friendships going. But it's amazing and it's really beautiful to work with people you love in such a passionate way.
Yeah, because there's nothing like I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's a phrase that's almost like, when a community decides about an art project, it's like the most boring art project you've ever seen because there's so many
Yeah,
opinions, isn't it? You don't really get that fire that you can get with like two people working together or something.
exactly. So there's four of us at the moment. Well, four of us as a core. Um, and yeah, there's obviously always like a little bit of a sway, so that takes a bit of negotiating, but it's great. We also kind of doing this with with our own autonomy inside this like group.
Mm.
So we all have different skills. Like Andy and Olivia, who are part of it, they have they do have done a lot of shows, like a lot of proper, I say proper shows, like they've done a lot of like, um, worked with a lot of galleries, understand things like artist statements, things like that. From me, with a corporate background, like I don't, I'm just like make stuff and figure out what to do with it. But they have like real like understanding of how to like build a proper show. And
Mm.
Cynthia and I both have a much more corporate background, so we're much better at like, well, not better, but we're a little bit more inclined to build systems around it. So documenting it, creating designs, starting an Instagram account, like that kind of stuff. So together we're like pulling on different strengths and yeah, we'll see how it goes, I guess. Early days, we
Sounds
still have to have the
sounds like a
show.
very yeah, it sounds like a very powerful combination. It sounds like it's all the right
Yeah,
things as well, isn't it? Because it's like you can work out how to put on the show, you can secure the funding, and you can also produce the limited edition product range that will help support the artists as they move forward.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
even Cynthia and I are we're going to do a collaborative workshop. So I've done workshops with her with block printing on fabric. And then it's like, well, we can block print one day and stitch the next. So really creating like interesting interactive workshops that can bring people, just a lot of joy, and being involved
Mm.
in that collaboration themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are there any other like projects you've got on the horizon?
Maybe this magazine thing, which I can't say
Mm-hmm.
much more about.
Mm.
But no, my focus really is on the show. So I've finished
Yeah.
two pieces so far, nearly finished the third, and trying to lean into that, not let the corporate kind of distractions keep me away from actually building a body of work, which is really difficult for me because I'm so used to briefs and guardrails. So then to kind of just go like into the ether and make stuff is yeah, I can find quite challenging.
Well, I suppose the
And I have
collaborative
one
thing.
other
No, good. Well, I was just going to say, I suppose the collaborative thing in some ways is a bit like you're going into the ether, but you're holding someone's hand. So in some ways, that's a nice in
Mm,
between phase, right?
totally, totally. And to have people that are so supportive, whose like creative opinions you just trust so much is just, yeah, it's really, really special.
Go on, but you're about to drop a bombshell.
Oh, I don't know when they're coming, but I have been working on, and it took about a year because it was a personal project. So I took on all these distractions, a pair of boxing gloves. And they are currently sitting with, yeah, I'm super excited. So they've finished, they're currently sitting with Jason, who makes them in Florida, makes gloves. So we're working together on them. And yeah, don't know when they're coming, but they're coming. And I'm so excited.
I hear they're going to be a knockout. That's
Nice.
yeah, very good.
The
I'm here all
gloves are
day.
all.
Right, I'm going to move on to some hardcore questions now. We've done all the easy,
Okay.
what is art and what is color theory questions. Do you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have a favorite band slash album?
I've been loving Little Sims at the moment. I don't know the name of the album. I'm just doing
Mm-hmm.
like Little Sims on Spotify. And
Mm-hmm.
a classic, also little, is Little Dragon. I'm like always, I'll always go back to Little Dragon, always. And Jamie XX.
Oh
Mm.
yeah. Have
So
you
we
heard
got
his new
two
album, his
littles
new
and Jamie
single?
X.
The
No.
latest one.
Oh,
He's got
yes,
one
yes, I
that's
have.
came
Yes, I
out about
have.
a month ago. It's really like
Yes,
upbeat. Like he can often be a little bit dark feeling Jamie XS, can't he? Whereas this
yes.
one's like a proper
Yeah.
bouncy summer tune. I love that. How, do you
Yeah.
listen to? I'm guessing you do listen to music when you're working, or you watch South African soap operas. But do you have different types of music for different types of projects or anything like that?
I just listen to music so at work.
Do you not?
I I'm shocking. I'm absolutely shocking. I just fill my brain with trash. I watch I rewatch stuff. The
Mm-hmm.
Sopranos, which is not trash, it The
Mm-hmm.
Mentalist, House,
Okay.
absolute, absolute just just it's shocking. CSI, a lot of CSI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Nobody
mean,
better double cross me. I've got all the information.
I'm pretty sure there's police officers who are like, "Oh God, we've got another one here. We've got someone who thinks they're a forensic detective because they're just like, should we put some powder down, something or other." So that's interesting.
I
Is that because you just want like hubbub and you don't need to pay a lot of attention to it, that kind of thing?
because I'm thinking, I think I like get into my own head. So the TV kind of is like company, especially that's why I think I've thought about this a lot because I'm obviously I have a lot of TV shame. Um, but I think it's the company, especially with series like The Mentalist or House, where like 20 minutes in it's lupus. You know, you like always know, you know what's gonna happen. You know, it's gonna have a
Yeah.
fight with whatsoever with and it's so you kind of like there's a formula, it doesn't demand anything from me. So what I'll do is I'll watch, maybe listen to like a podcast or two, like The Daily or Ologies or something like really interesting. And then I kind of have like my brain quota of the day, like the stimulation. And then I just want to switch off and like be with the work. But I like the company. So the TV is like the
Mm.
company, and then I just like will switch. Occasionally I listen to music, but I also find music too exciting. So I'll like
Hmm.
get up and I'll like dance and I start like cleaning. So I just like the TV is company and I just sit and then I'm there with the work and in my own thoughts, and I can think more and be more present with the work.
Mm. And I guess maybe as well though, like rewatching means that you've already seen it, so you can't get too swept up in it. And then some of these other
Mm,
shows, like you say, they can be on and they keep you company, but you're not going to be like, like
exactly.
diving into
Like I
it.
can't
Yeah.
totally, if I see something that looks really good, I'll be like, I can't watch that. I'll like
What was the
save it for
last good
later, you
show
know?
then that you watched when you weren't stitching? Like the last good thing you watched?
Ripley, have you seen Ripley?
It's in the queue. It is.
It
Yeah, I'm
is
going to be watching.
exquisite. It is so I like the storyline is great. Like the storyline is, and obviously, you know, you even know the storyline if you've seen the original with Matt Damon. But it's like every image is just so beautifully composed, so beautifully
Mm.
lit. It's just so visually glorious. And it's a great exercise for color theory if you want to be like, there's my darks, there's my this, there's my lights.
I love it. Yeah,
Really
I heard someone
beautiful.
saying that not only is Andrew Scott a great actor, but he's a
Mm.
great actor who's in the precise point in space that he needs to be to get that shot looking awesome. Like I was saying, like someone was saying, it's like it is beautiful. Every single shot of it is
It is so
beautiful.
beautiful. And even when it's dark and macabre, it's just like so considered, and the pace is really special. And it's a really, I find it like a very, it's somewhere also between like art house, which is a little bit above my pay grade, and like commercial TV. It just like lives in a really beautiful space. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, and sometimes when you get those shows, there was a TV show that came out a couple of years ago called The English, and it had
Okay.
Emily Blunt in it, and it was about an English woman who came over to the newly formed United States of America. I think she was trying to find like the person who shot her husband, something or other like that. But again, the art direction of it, the skies, like I want to watch it again,
And
not because of the story. I just want to look at like the
yeah,
cinematography of it because it's just
yeah,
so beautiful and sometimes you need that, don't you? You can just watch a show and just be like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, I'm going
just
to have to
visually like,
knock.
kind of-
Yeah, I'm going to knock Ripley up the list of things to watch because we keep
yeah.
saying it. We just watched Andrew Scott in what is it? To Get All of Us Strangers. I think that's what it's called. The film that he was in.
Oh, I've heard it's very good.
Yeah, it's very good. And at first, I wasn't sure I was going to be into it because I like Andrew Scott and I like Paul Mescal, but I was a bit like they're both very good looking, and it's just going to be a bit. But as the story progresses, it gets more and more like left field. So by the end, Mary isn't that into left field stuff. So she was disappointed by the end of it. And I was like, this is absolutely brilliant. It makes no sense whatsoever at the end. It's like
Yes.
very enjoyable. So I'd recommend that. That's for sure. Okay, so we've done TV. Have you got a good film you've seen lately? Do you have a favorite film?
A favorite film. Oh, also don't judge me. I love Pain and Gain with with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg.
Which
They're
one?
wrestlers. It's based on a true story. They're wrestlers that they like. They kidnap this guy, and they're like
I don't think
bodybuilders.
I've
They
heard of
kidnap a
that.
guy, and it's like super saturated. It's kind of a dark comedy, crime, true story combination, and I don't know why, but it just it works. It works for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. There's no reason why we should. I don't judge any of these things. I just take a note of them and think,
and
oh, that's pretty good.
Oh, do that. And The Sopranos. I'm a huge Soprano fan. I may or may not have the game that I absolutely destroy at,
I love it.
but have no one to
Um,
play because nobody loves it as much as I do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're one of those. Yeah, no, not going to play it. My sister-in-law is ridiculously good at Boggle, which is a game where you kind of shake cubes that have got letters on them, and then you have to look and make as many words as possible out of it. And it's so annoying to play. On top of that, what have you? Last good book you've read? Do you have a favorite book? That kind of thing.
I am a huge fan of Victoria Finlay, and she wrote Colors Travel Through the Paint Box, which is kind of like each chapter is a different color, and she talks about the history of the color as well as her journey with the color, and she's just incredible. I think she's one of my favorite writers ever, and she's come out with a book I think a year and a half ago called Fabric, which is like this big. Um, so every now and then I get into that book. So yeah, she's hands down my favorite writer. And then obviously not obviously, another book that also thread related is I think Through the Eye of the Needle, the book by Claire Hunter.
Yeah, through the
Yeah,
is it through the needle? Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I've got it.
Through the
I've got it.
Needle. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and she also just love how she writes about the history of needlework, and she just puts them into different chapters and just gives such an amazing perspective on different elements and even different like psychologies around needlework. It's yeah, there's I read a lot of books about needlework. I don't
It's
know.
interesting, right? Because in some ways you're not dissimilar to me. Like I sort of meandered into the world of
Mm,
needlework to whatever position I've got, and I think you're similar. And then, how
yeah.
much do you find that the broad context? I don't feel like it affects you, but like the same with me. After a while, you have to go. Actually, needlework's a thing that's been done around the world for millennia. I ought to just
Yeah.
give that some consideration. I don't know what your feeling about that is.
I think for me, I was like so determined in the beginning to not know anything about it. Once I realized that it was that I hadn't invented it and it had been around for centuries, and that I was like, I don't want to know the rules. I don't want to know the traditional way of doing stuff. Like I would just use any fabric I could find, any thread that I could find, and I was like, I'm not going to be told that I'm wrong. I just don't want to know what's right and what's wrong because that's just going to stifle this thing that I love so much, you know. And
Mm,
because I was studying and I had all these other creative outlets that were actually my job, I was very protective of keeping needlework just my thing that didn't have any expectations on it. It didn't have any pressure. It was just mine. So I really kept myself as far away from like how-to books, craft books, history, traditional techniques, all of that. I just didn't want to know. And then I think after I gained like confidence in my style and confidence in the way that I was approaching it, and it started like moving into a different territory. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't actually know that like black work was from this, and this is how the stories were told in black work. You know, when information comes into your orbit, and then I was like, it's kind of amazing. And then like, oh, I didn't know. I never thought. You know, you think about pictures of Henry the Eighth and like him painted up there with this like a ridiculously big hat and these robes and like his book house, and you kind of like, oh, that's all actually hand embroidered. That's mad.
yeah.
And then like I started getting really excited about the history of it because it no longer like hinged itself on being a uh it didn't feel like repressive. It felt like, oh, I'm actually a part of this. Like now I'm this tiny, 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 tiny little speck on this massive ancient, ancient,
Mm,
ancient like path of its rich, like multicultural, multi generational legacy that
mm,
is innate in all of us. And like realizing like we have been, as humans, have been embellishing cloth since the beginning of wearing cloth. You know, like we can't
mm.
help it. We want to put stuff in our hair, we want to put stuff in our ears, we want to put stuff on our clothes. And that's like so rad. And then just being like getting really excited about it and then just wanting to soak it all up. So I think that's kind of how the shift happened for me.
I can see that, and that makes sense because it's kind of like you don't want it to define you. You want to forge your own version of this thread stitching that you invented without being told about how it should be because it was done like that in the 18th century. But yeah, then there comes a point, isn't it, when suddenly you're like, wow, like this stuff's amazing, you know? And I think it just
Yeah.
is, you know. I can remember going to Guatemala on a holiday and just seeing some people who had embroidery on their clothes and just being like, yeah, you know, we're all part of this
Yeah.
thing.
Totally, totally. That's exactly how I feel, you know? And when people are like, I mean, I don't know. I'm open to being wrong. I'm pretty sure I am wrong about this. But when people are like, what is it like doing this granny art? I'm like, it's not granny art. You are seeing it through a single lens and you're imagining, I was like thinking about like English style or like Anglified, like embroideries that debutantes did. That is one tiny, tiny, tiny spectrum of what embroidery is. Just think about South America. Do you think about that as, you know, those hapiles, I think they call, I can never pronounce the bracelet. But when you think about that, do you think of it as granny art? You don't. You think about it as like
Mm,
this beautiful, rich, we like culturally significant like attire. And you think about like the embroidery in South China and like the Yunnan province, and you're like, don't think like, oh, that's such sweet granny art. You're like, that is crazy, you know? And it's like,
mm.
it's just, yeah. So I get all worked up, as you can tell, when people think about embroidery as just this one thing, because like you say, we are like a part of this huge, huge community of makers. It's
Mm.
awesome.
Yeah, it's bonkers, isn't it? I mean, I like Lego, but
Mm.
Lego's only been around for like 60 years, and yet, like you say, needlework's been around for like 60,000 years or whatever. It's insane.
I've got a
Um,
feeling that there are more museums for Lego than for needlework, though. So
yeah,
you're probably
yeah.
onto something.
Is there an interesting
Mm.
fact that not a lot of people know about Danielle Clough?
Then shit, I actually thought about something the other day. It's like I don't know if people anyone knows about me. I guess that I am a bit of a hoarder. I'm a recovering hoarder, not like a not not one that needs to be televised. So with that has
Thanks. Well,
come
I've got
like
7 tellies.
yeah. Um, so with that has come like strange collections of things. Oh, here's one. And I went through a phase of collecting ceramics, like ceramic animals. I had like tons of ceramic animals. And I maybe had about like 30 of them or at one time, 30 to 40 ceramic animals. And then when I was on my in the recovery phase of my excessive collecting, I started leaving them around Cape Town. So I like would hide them in restaurants and put them like in flower bays and stuff like that. So there was a period of my life where I was a guerrilla ceramic
Mm.
graffiti artist, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I used to know someone who she still like makes needlework and stuff now, but back in the day she used to be known as the fastener, and she would make like small amigurumi figures and then like cable tie them to lampposts and leave them for people and stuff. I love the idea of that. The other
Very
thing that made
sweet.
me think
Very
of
sweet.
though is like in the ceramics industry, there must have come a point, let's say it was 100 years ago, when suddenly they worked out how to make anything out of ceramics. And then they went, let's make everything out of ceramics. Because when
Yeah,
you look around some of these vintage shops, like the amount of random things, if you want, I don't know, 4 carrots balanced on a pickle barrel, someone made it out of ceramics. They made everything, didn't they?
totally. No, they're a mess. And there's a secondhand store where my little studio is, and obviously somebody decided to get rid of their collection or pass or something, and they were so into terriers. They are just Yorkshire Terriers, ceramic Yorkshire Terriers all over that shop. I mean, they framed pictures, they're framed that just have terriers on top that you can put your own picture in. I mean, there must be 40 different types of terriers in that place. And that means that there are 40 different ceramic people who are into terriers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of terriers, a lot of ceramic terriers.
And at some point, the ceramics company went, yeah, we can make another terrier. They never went, yeah, we've got enough terriers now. They're like, no, why not
Well,
have a
why don't we
terrier?
do one with a bow on its head? We don't have any with
Yeah.
bows on their head. That's a great idea. These are gonna sell. These are gonna fly. I also realized with ceramics in my collecting is that they're not all painted equal. So a
Mm.
lot of them have got like the wildest eyebrows, like dogs, specifically ceramic dogs. Will just have these like mad eyebrows painted on, and you're just like, yeah, who gave that
Wow.
guy the painting, the ceramics job?
Is there a Tumblr about that somewhere, do you think?
Oh, I wish I had started that. That would be great.
That would be rad, wouldn't it? That was amazing. Hey, Danielle, thanks for having a needle exchange with
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
me. Good. Right, I shall stop that. That was